Well, hey everyone, welcome back to another of Vendel's weekly arcade quest tutorials. So arcade quests in general have some cool new things in store. Apparently, according to the most recent Warrior stand that came out just earlier today, there will be some changes to arcade mode. Not only will they be adjusting some of the bot difficulties, but I mean even further in terms of how they interact and how gear score. Handles in the game, making it easier to pursue the more difficult quests earlier on when you have less reputation with a hero, which I love that principle and ideal, because it means I'll be able to play with other heroes without having to get them all the way repped up to 8. But additionally, they'll be adding a new survival objective mode where bots will keep spawning, keep trying to come murder you, and you literally just have to stay alive. Now, weeklies or random arcade quests with that on obviously will prioritize certain characters as being better or preferential as compared to others. But it'll be kind of fun to see how that survival works out and how it affects the overall gameplay and what kind of things you have to do to accomplish it. So this week's weekly quest is called Vortiger's Task. And I was a little worried we'd just be up against a whole bunch of Black Priors again, but that is not the case. In fact, we don't see a single Black Prior. We're up against a variety of other opponents, and this primarily features two modifiers that we have seen before, but minimally so. And for this quest, your character choice, there are 3 spots where you can ledge, so most of the phases are going to be pretty easy. But character choice, almost any character is going to work, because some characters that are heavy hitters will work well in certain phases, but have a harder time in other ones, where light hitters will work well in those phases. And you'll see why as we get into the video. And because of that, I was able to get pretty easy clears with the Shigoki, the Aramusha, and the Shinobi, which all obviously have very different playstyles. Given, I think the Shigoki was overall probably the easiest clear I got. The clears with the Shinobi were also very easy, just given his ledging ability, except for one phase. And the Aramusha was the one I probably struggled the longest with, but was still able to make it through fairly easy. This quest is not awful, though phase 2 can give you quite a bit of trouble if you're not well prepared for it. That being said, though, all except for phase 3 can be cleared extremely quickly if you're willing to do a cheese method with someone like the Shinobi. And that method is, of course, you guessed it, ledge the enemy, punch the enemy, bash the enemy, defenestrate them out the window, send them into oblivion, push them into the next dimension, send them to melt in the flames, let them burn in hell. The point being, if you're willing to just cheese your way through most of the quest, it's all really easy, especially if you use a character that can bash or shove or ledge in any feasible way, because there's a lot of ledges available to you, always easy to access, or there's just the little fire pits like there are in the Forge. Given, like I said, the Shinobi clear was probably my fastest. I did still die a few times in just making these attempts, because you will of course get ledged occasionally yourself while you're trying to make fools of the bots in this manner. So that being said, let's return back to phase 1. So this is the Forge. What this phase effectively is your character does better light attack damage and has a shield. That's what you have at your advantage. And the enemies have a variety of different advantages that just make them a little stronger or a little more scary, but nothing that's too particular out of the ordinary. The main thing you need to be aware of is just that your lights do more damage. So utilize your lights, no matter who you are, because you're going to get pretty good ordnance out of them. Again, like said, there are a variety of ledges available to you on this stage, but if you want to go through it legitimately, it is very possible. Just be aware that characters like the warlord tend to be very defensive. He will block a lot of what you throw out at him and parry a lot and feint for you to trick you into trying to parry and other things very frequently. Also be aware of the Highlander's range, because his longsword can hit you literally through his allies, so you can't always see him attacking when he swings at you through his allies. But just continue to push through, utilize your grabs and your lights if you are any character that can do so well. And this first phase isn't terrible. And like I said, if you ever need a little bit of help, it is possible to push them into the fire. For me, the biggest problem with this phase was actually the extra soldier adds, and that's because the soldiers can guard break you repeatedly, and against other characters with bashes and things, they can just keep you from being able to maneuver while not actually feeding you too much revenge, because they seem to not feed as much as others do. So moving on to phase 2, Fold Castle. This was, in my opinion, the hardest phase. There's 2 reasons for this. First, just because of how the stage is set up. Second, because of the manipulation of your abilities. Okay, so there's 3 reasons for this, excuse me. And third, the manipulation of the opponent's abilities, the modifier that allows the female berserker to knock you down with a heavy. This creates a variety of awful situations, and so expect to die a lot and find yourself in some very weird, contorted, maybe even, you know, close to the Centurion good grape eating poses. But the point being, this quest is tough because you're dealing with berserkers who can throw out a lot of heavies in different tricky ways and speeds, and so likely they're going to knock you down at least once with them every single time you attempt the quest. There is a ledge up in the back right corner, as you saw earlier with the Shinobi, for taking it on cheaply. Additionally, there are arrows that, as you can see, sweep across the field. Now, just like with any AI, when they're hit by the arrows, they go through a few minutes of stupidity where you can normally follow them and get off a few free hits. However, something to note, because there is 2 of them and because they're both quick, it is not necessarily always safe to capitalize on this. Therefore, utilizing revenge I found is the most effective way to get through the quest. Also, a very important point is focus on the female berserker first. If she knocks you down while the male berserker is loading up one of his just like hard overhead heavies, that's like half of your entire health bar gone. The point being that these guys deal a lot of damage, and a lot of damage quickly, and so that knockdown really hurts you. Also, your heavies during that last quest will have done less damage, making it very difficult to get through with characters like the Shigokis who focus on their heavies rather than their small lights. The third phase, instead of weakening your heavies and charging up your lights, charges up your heavies alone and pits you up against 3 enemies that all have defensive buffs. One with a regeneration, one with extra health, and one with a shield at the beginning. So effectively, you just have to carry through with a battle of attrition against all 3 of these opponents, but there are a few things given to you to make this phase quite a lot easier. First off, the very first person you want to engage is the Valkyrie, but before engaging the Valkyrie, always take out these 2 archers up here if you can. The reason for that is those 2 archers will hassle you no matter where you are on the map, and it's really annoying how much they can shake you up and stagger you out of animations. Also, after and behind the archers, there's a shield generator buff, whatever you want to call it, zone. Utilizing that provides a lot of extra E-hit P, essentially, for you. And then third, given the environment, there is a bear trap to the right of where the Shigoki is currently standing that you can see, and the raider, when she joins the combat, will come through that portal if you position herself here, hitting it, thus delaying and letting you fight the shaman a little bit longer solo before having to deal with the raider. It's just a good postpone tactic because they all will come and actually attack you fairly soon, fairly quickly compared to some of the older quests where they'd let the characters kind of linger just in the background as you moved through the ranks of them. Additionally, that shield zone, something to remember back at the top, does respawn, so if you want to, you can also try to just hold up there, and I've seen that work pretty well. That's how I cleared it with my Aramusha, as you'll see here in a bit. But I also want to talk a little bit about the AI. You'll notice here I'm just flurrying heavies with my Aramusha. I don't know why, but during this phase and the final phase, the AIs tend not to parry as frequently and also miss quite a few blocks. And this doesn't just go for the Valkyrie, here I'm doing it again to the Raider. Normally what I'm doing there would be a very bad choice. They would parry like my second heavy in the combo, and then I would be completely out of stamina. But for some reason, against these particular AIs in Phase 3 and 4, you can just open up on them with a barrage of heavies if you run an infinite style chain character, and it seems to work out pretty well. So now we're into the final phase, the Generals of Jarl Jafnhar. So, I haven't actually talked about it, but this is actually kind of cool. The story in this quest is a little interesting because you're serving Vortiger, fighting or preemptively against a Viking attack that he predicted, which is why the entirety of the quest is focused on fighting Vikings. And it looks like this quest chain and story may actually continue with future weekly quests based on today's Warrior's Den, but we'll have to wait and see. So in this particular phase, we get a buff to our heavy attacks and a nerf to our light attacks, where our enemies both have high revenge gain, which shouldn't matter too much as long as you're killing them appropriately, and a consumable shield. a regenerating shield. So that regenerating shield does mean that you want to be careful about overfeeding the revenge. Make sure you're always doing damage and doing damage decently quick so the shield doesn't regenerate, because otherwise you may give one of them revenge. You'd think, oh, but wait! They changed how revenge works. So you can't get revenge in 1v1s anymore. So I don't think these guys can ever actually get revenge. Therefore, that little thing on them is kind of pointless. At least in all my attempts in this quest, that never actually occurred. So you'll notice also, you saw me at the very beginning pick up a attack booster. That of course helps with just combating them well. Additionally, there is a ledge with fire pits that you saw at the very beginning of the video where I ledged with the Shinobi. But getting through this phase is pretty easy, but again, be aware of the Highlander's range. Most of my deaths came from the Highlander clipping me when I didn't think he was going to hit me. Well, that about sums it up for this quest. So here's the obligatory, feel free to like, share, comment below about your thoughts on this. Actually, interesting note, I got my first dislike starting a couple videos ago, and I'm grateful for that notoriety. You can't be a good YouTuber without a few people that for no explained reason dislike you. So always remember, comment whatever you feel like, and that modifiers modify your playstyle. Vendel, out.